Dopamine, it's flowing.
I am damn excited. Damn excited.
We are so excited to be joining you guys tonight.
Oh! Well, how you doing, man? Patrick.
Will, Sterling.
Yeah.
Super Bowl champion, two-time Pro Bowler, and Trent Green. Trent Green, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
And he picked it up! He picked it up! He's gonna score!
And we'll see you next week. But until then, as always, go Chiefs.
We're number 9. We're number 9. That's right, baby. Number 9 in the NFL draft. That is where your Kansas City Chiefs are at. Sterling Holmes, Josh Briscoe on this glorious Tuesday in Kansas City. Briscoe, how are you?
Stu, I'm conflicted. On one hand, I am very, very sad to not get any more Kansas City Chiefs games for the next 8 months, at least in terms of games that matter. That stinks. On the other hand, I'm kind of glad we don't have to watch any more games like the one that we watched on Sunday, because that was not what I'll be yearning for over these next 8 months. These next 8 months, I'll be yearning for Patrick Mahomes and versions of this Chiefs team we saw in glimpses this year. I couldn't help but notice the title of today's show is not Josh and Sterling spend a full hour breaking down Chris Oladokun and Shane Buechele versus Kenny Pickett and Aiden O'Connell. I charted all of their snaps. I watched that game 4 times. And you're telling me you don't want my breakdown?
Yeah, that was 4 scoops of ass. That was the ass bowl, baby. That was the who was less ass. It turns out Daniel Carlson was less ass. That's basically what it was. Yeah, I don't care about that game because it was just an abomination to the sport of football. I actually recorded, I should bring it out sometime. Maybe I'll put it in the Discord. I had a video of, I said Sarah McLachlan came out with a new song. It's Arms of an Angel in the background. And I just go, you know what? I won't even give it away. I'll put it somewhere in the Discord at some point. But just think of me saying dumb things in a pleading voice underneath the song, in the arms of an angel. It's depressing.
It feels a lot like our average Tuesday here, honestly.
Yeah, it's pretty much just our average Tuesday. It's Tuesday.
Your mustache looks great, Sterling. I told you this off air too, but I'm just looking at it now, and it's like Bob's Burgers left the burger industry at a young age and instead decided to get into podcasting. It is a cartoonishly good mustache, and that for me, that's a silver lining. That's what we're highlighting, the good things, as life has not been great around Chiefs football recently.
Yeah, we'll do good and bad in today's episode of, because there were some positives. Number 9. Thank you for the stash compliment. It's about time for it to go. It is too thick. I was eating chicken noodle soup today, and it was
and you're only getting broth. All of the bits were getting caught, like in the mustache, like baleen, like a whale.
It was a disaster. I mean, it was just it was a nightmare. It ruined soup for me.
Have you considered, I mean, since you have the volume, have you considered just doing, not quite like the pencil mustache? I think that in 2026, you got to really have the aesthetic to go with it. But I feel like you could move that thing up a little bit and still keep a thin but well-defined stash up there.
Name one guy who had a pencil mustache who was a normal human being.
That's why that you may have noticed. You can run back the tape. I pulled back before I fully endorsed the pencil mustache because I do think it would be a problematic look in some way, shape, or form. I just think, I don't know. I'd hate to see your whole Pixar dad aesthetic that you've got going on right now. I'd hate to see that go to waste.
All right, let's do positives first. We're in a good humor right now. We're in a good mood. So let's do the positives
last
first.
Week. I mean, this is better.
This is great. Kingsley Suamataia. He graded out better in pass pro than Chris Lindstrom. Chris Lindstrom's probably the best right guard in football overall. He's the best run blocking guard in football. I mean, he's insane for Atlanta. right guard versus left guard, obviously. But I thought it was interesting that Kingsley graded out better in pass pro than maybe the best overall right guard in football. Kingsley Suamataia was outstanding. Now, if you compare him to Joe Thuney, not quite on that level. Joe Thuney was one of the best guards in all of football this season for the Bears. But Kingsley went from unplayable to a top 10 overall left guard in football. And that deserves a lot of credit. Whether that's all him or if Andy Heck, I need to give Andy Heck some credit here because I was very harsh. I said he was on the hot seat heading into the season, and this at least was a nice progression or at least a little tip of the cap to Andy Heck. I think Kingsley Suamataia and to an extent Josh Simmons, we need to talk more about the outlook of the left side of the O-line because, again, injuries and everything for Josh Simmons plays a factor, but it looks like they got it right.
100%. And I'm going to kind of go in reverse here because you mentioned it with Josh Simmons. The only thing right now is that it ended up being a relatively small sample size because of the personal matter and then the injury at the end. You just didn't see as much from him as you wanted, but you saw what you wanted to see from him, if that makes sense. Everything he showed you when he was on the field was telling you that he is immediately a starting caliber left tackle. And if there is any growth in his game as he goes, and there's every reason to believe that there will be, if he continues to take, I'm trying not to overstate it on Josh Simmons. If he takes small steps forward, he'll probably be a top 15 left tackle for Patrick Mahomes for a very long time. If he takes leaps forward, he could be the best left tackle in football. Like the tools are there for that. But so anyway, I do think that because he was out there for less time and because he came in as a more pro-ready product this year, I do think Josh Simmons is a bit of a secondary story where I could not be more with you. I mentioned this somewhere this morning. I think Kingsley Suamataia might have an argument for being the single brightest silver lining of this season, the brightest development throughout. There are other candidates. I haven't thought about who I would take over it, whatever. Noah Williams is a great development, but Kingsley was out there almost literally every snap of the season. I don't have his numbers in front. I know he missed a couple of snaps here and there, but he was the guy at left guard. And to your point, last year it went so poorly at left tackle and the Chiefs yanked Kingsley so early in the season that there was a realistic possibility that it just never happened for him, that he was never going to be a consistent NFL starter. And at some point you wonder, man, if they just pulled the plug after 3 games and never went back to the well there, is he ever going to be trusted on the field again? I didn't think that's how it was going to go. You didn't think that's how it was going to go, but that was on the realm of possibility. This might just be a total bust, or maybe you kick him inside and you try to have all that athleticism translate to guard, and you can kind of see the pieces there, but you could see the argument for those pieces coming together at tackle. So, as is the case so often with young players, lots of good theory, lots of good film to review from college. But what happens when the opportunity arrives, and then what do you do with that opportunity? I don't think it's an overstatement to say gold star A+ Kingsley Suamataia year 2. He can improve as a player. Like you said, he's not yet Joe Thuney, which even the Chiefs had to expect this year. That trade wasn't for 2025. That trade was because you don't want to pay Thuney that extension that he ended up getting in Chicago, and you want Kingsley to be a long-term answer while you're paying Trey Smith. The logic of that held. Kingsley was more than good enough for that logic to hold up through the season. So I am completely with you in the idea that he deserves to have one of the number one takeaways from this season in terms of the positives. I don't know. There is zero question at all that he's your starting left guard next year.
Correct.
I am really impressed with that being the case, considering at this time last season, we were talking about if we were ever going to hear from that dude again.
If it was going to be Mike Caliendo or Hunter Norzad. And it turns out Kingsley got the job and ran with it. And this makes me comfortable for the offensive line next year. This should be a really good unit with Josh Simmons, Kingsley Suamataia, Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith. Again, health is going to be a factor. That's any team. But you have a very good, maybe the best 4 in a row in one of the best 4 in a row in the NFL. Then right tackle, Jalen Moore was a little disappointment this year. I think that was tough. I think it's fair to say he was disappointing. I still trust him at right tackle. It's not like it's a black hole. It wasn't quite what we expected. And you have Esapole as your swing tackle, who has, I thought, looked really good. Hunter Norzad looked fine in week 18. Overall, I think you're pretty comfortable with the offensive line, how it is. Maybe another backup guard or tackle to really solidify things, but overall, not a large investment needs to be sunk there, and that's a nice situation to be in.
I feel really good about O-linemen 1 through 6. That's a great spot to be in, considering how many other places you need to spend those draft picks and that free agency money.
Yeah. I think for me, another positive, secondary as a whole. Mm-hmm. I think with McDuffie going down, Watson not playing, Noah Williams is probably number 2 just in general of the positives of this year. Yeah. He graded out on PFF as the 15th best cornerback, not rookie, 15th best cornerback. Jalen Watson was number 13. But I believe they had him ranked as the number 1 cornerback of all rookies this year was Noah Williams. I thought that the secondary gives you confidence that you don't have to overpay for Watson or overpay for McDuffie. That if you want to trade McDuffie and get some value back, that you can and you'll be okay. That if you get into a bidding war with someone on Jalen Watson, you can trade him and be okay. Because Christian Fulton technically is under contract next year. It's like $13 million. But it's $8 million to cut him.
Right.
So you're really only saving $5 million.
Right.
And I think we all thought before the last 3 games, he's for sure being cut. They're saving the $5 million. It's a sunk cost. Well, Fulton gave me confidence of, hey, maybe the rest of the cornerbacks were just so good, and it did take him a while for him to learn the Spagnuolo defense. Noah Williams looks like a legit guy, like a dude. Yeah, you don't want to just have those 2 guys because if an injury happens, you're very, very thin. But now you don't have to have both McDuffie and Watson back, and you'd be pretty comfortable if only one were able to come back to KC. Some money that could be spent on the defensive line, hopefully. That would be a nice little consolation prize. I don't know. I think Noah Williams, though, and just the secondary as a whole gave me a lot of hope. I know Shamari Connor in the slot, we all feel a certain way. I know Jaden Hicks had a very inconsistent season. He looked a little better as the season went on. At the very, very end, I thought Hicks really flashed. Brian Cook, I thought, had a great year overall, but he might have priced himself out of KC. Yeah. But then you still have Shamari and Jaden Hicks, right? So I think overall, and then, by the way, CRW, I know he was injured a lot of the season, but I think what we saw with him and Kevin Knowles even gives you at least a small amount of, okay, well, those are good depth pieces that you can at least trust in a pinch and you're fine with. So overall, I think Noah Williams and then the secondary is probably the positive number 2.
I think it's so fascinating. I don't want to just get to the offseason stuff because I'm looking at the calendar, Stu, and we're going to have a couple of months to talk about the cornerback plan before free agency and everything. I want to talk about it, though, because I'm really fascinated to see what the plan's going to be, because I agree with, I think, everything you said there. You also don't want to go into this offseason and only lose corners. Like, you don't want to trade McDuffie and let Watson walk and just promote Noah Williams and Christian Fulton and Chris Roland Wallace, and then you maybe draft somebody in the 4th round. I think that could happen, to be clear. Brian Cook as well. Brian Cook walk. It's going to be fascinating to see how those pieces come together, because I think it's going to end up showing you who they value and what positions they value that way, how they think that their coaching staff can cover up some of the deficiencies. Obviously, they've just done that so well, developing guys at corner. But all that to say, I'm with you on Noah Williams. I think there's so many reasons to be optimistic. And I think regardless of the fact that he ended up playing, and obviously the last few weeks, he got a lot more work, and it was kind of up and down before that. He played less than half of the defensive snaps, even while playing a ton there at the end of the season, less than half the defensive snaps on the year. There's almost no world to me where he's not one of your starting corners next year.
Yeah.
And I would think Spags is going to be preparing as that is going to be the case. That wasn't the plan. That wasn't plan A in training camp, right? Like, I think having Noah Williams climb the depth chart was always the hope, but you weren't preparing him to be the starter when you have McDuffie and Watson and frankly Fulton, even though he was obviously hurt in camp and didn't get up to speed quite that way either. And I'm with you on Fulton. I thought for sure 3 weeks ago, I thought that $5 million was as good as freed up. And now you think, well, are you going to, if you have $5 million in cap space to use, are you going to find a corner on a 1-year deal that's going to be as worthwhile as Christian Fulton next year? And after these last 2 games, I don't know. I think the answer might be no, and that he might be worth keeping around there. So I'll be very curious. One other like big wrinkle, I'm just talking out of my you-know-what, but I do wonder if there's any little evasive maneuver to make with Jalen Watson. Something that our friend Tucker Franklin has mentioned a couple of times is that the cornerback market in free agency this year is really slim pickings, and the Chiefs have the 2 top eligible corners in this class. Obviously, McDuffie's not a free agent, but it seems like he's on the market at least. If somebody calls and offers you the Sauce Gardner deal, you say, thanks, Trent, and good luck here. I don't think that deal's probably on the way. And then obviously Watson is a free agent. So is there a logic to trying to do a little tag and trade with Watson right at the end? And obviously you're not going to get as much of a return on that because you have less leverage there. Do they just extend Jalen Watson and try to get him at a lower number and move McDuffie? Or, and you might be able to tell by the way I've gone through this, where I'm kind of how I've evolved in the last month or two, I'm not completely in the camp of, oh, Trent McDuffie is just gone. I think that has gained speed for good reason at this point. And I think the Chiefs showed you that they locked up Nick Bolton and George Karlaftis and Trey Smith before they locked up Trent McDuffie. That's partially the order of necessity there. But if they really wanted to lock up McDuffie over Karlaftis, they could have done that. And so ultimately, and McDuffie might not have wanted to sign until he was at this point. So like, it's not just that the Chiefs forgot his contract was coming up. But all that to say, I think they have several directions they can go. And that's a good thing because you can take your best offers. You can try to keep your best guys around at the right price. And you have enough players in that secondary to kind of keep building around. Also, just terribly interested what's going to happen with Brian Cook. Because I don't know when you cross the Rubicon of the market value, like there was the report that he'll be in the $15 million range. That's not surprising to me. I think that's probably about right, but that's also a lot of money. I think he deserves it. I think the Chiefs might pay him that, but that's a lot of money. All 3 of those things are true. So it's going to be, I think probably the most interesting position group this offseason will be the secondary. They need more help on the defensive line. That's not that interesting. You need to bring in talent on the D line. The cornerback room, I can see going 4 or 5 different ways.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to probably keep one of the 3. And it just depends which one of the 3 will you keep. Maybe 2, but all 3 is, I think, a non-starter.
With Fulton
you're not
being
getting
the
this
third there, you're saying, just because he's TBD?
Cook, Watson, and McDuffie.
Oh, got you. Yeah. With you.
I think with McDuffie, everyone looks at Sauce Gardner. That's unfair because the Jets ate a lot of money on the signing bonus. You basically got a first rounder for Sauce Gardner and a first rounder because of the contract that was the money that was already taken and just ate by the Jets. So you're not getting that. Can you get a first? Maybe, but you're not getting 2 first. That is just, I think, a misnomer. The Chiefs aren't going to give him that deal and then trade him. That's not what they're going to do. Clark's not going to do that. So I think if you get a first, even that might be more in the range of McDuffie.
And even that could mean so many different things because, like, and this isn't going to happen, but if you were like, hey, Rams, you've got 2 firsts this year. I'd love to have that one from the Falcons. They're not giving you the one from the Falcons. Maybe their own is on the table, and then you're looking in the late 20s that you're adding in, or maybe this would be pretty unlikely, I think, but maybe you just say, you know what, actually, depending on who the team is, we don't want your pick this year. We want your pick next year, and we want to play the game that the Rams played trading out with the Falcons last year in the draft. But I'm with you. I think a first-round pick is probably the market you want to be in there.
Yeah. A couple more positives I want to get to before we talk about the negatives. But one positive that I do want to talk about is Factor. Oh, baby. Factor. They're back on, and I am thrilled. Another reason why I am absolutely thrilled is because Factor just got delivered right before this show. It was awesome. I got home from radio. What's on the porch? Factor meals. 6 meals that I picked out that are all absolutely delicious. You want to eat better, but you have 0 time and you have 0 energy. That is me. Factor doesn't ask you to meal prep or follow recipes. It removes the entire problem. 2 minutes, real food, done. So I talk about this a lot. I try to eat healthier. I do. It might not look it, but I try to eat healthier. It's called balance, people. When you do radio, Briscoe knows. You also don't have long breaks. I'm sure a lot of you that are listening right now, you go to work, you might not have a lot of long breaks, or you're trying to eat healthier, but you simply don't like to meal prep because you're tired of eating the same thing over and over again. When I meal prep, I make chicken, sweet potatoes, broccoli, healthy, right? But then I'm stuck eating the same thing for 5 straight days. You know how sick and tired I am of that?
You're not a chef, Sterling. I am not a chef. You're not a master of the culinary arts.
And this is where Factor comes in. It is already made by chef, designed by dietitians, and delivered to your door. You heat it for 2 minutes, and boom, you eat that thing. So lean proteins, colorful vegetables, whole food ingredients, healthy fats. This is the stuff that is meant for you. I do it all the time. We have 5-minute breaks in radio, 2 minutes to put it in, a minute to cool, 2 minutes for me to eat because I eat extremely fast, and boom, that is a break. That's a Factor break, baby. I'm just saying. I am an absolutely massive fan of this, so I'm not kidding. You get this fresh, never frozen, ready in 2 minutes, delicious, delicious food. Man, I'm just telling you straight up, if you're not using Factor, you are doing yourself a massive disservice, okay? What you guys need to do, head to factormeals.com/arrowhead50off and use code Arrowhead at 50off to get 50% off your first Factor plus free breakfast for a year. Wow. Offer only valid for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto renew and subscription purchase. Make healthier eating easy with Factor. And again, telling you right now, I love Factor.
This man is built by Factor.
The read's over. I'm telling you, I love Factor. It just came in, and I'm thrilled. I'm having one for dinner and one for lunch tomorrow.
I didn't want to say awesome. It before you got to like the link and everything at the end because I'm not sure if Factor wants this on their conscience or not. But Factor is actually the reason Sterling's going to have to shave that mustache. It keeps getting in the way of him and his Factor meal, and you can't have anything getting in the way of Sterling and his Factor meal. It once it becomes a hurdle for your fork to clear on the way to your mouth, it's become a detriment to your existence.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Okay, a couple more.
Shave your mustache, get Factor. Okay, sorry, go ahead. That's their new tagline. They just emailed me.
Couple more positives before we get to the negatives. I would like to say Nick Bolton was a positive this year. I think the linebacking core as a whole was a positive this year. I think some people might disagree. I thought Nick Bolton was really good. I thought Drew Tranquill had a really solid season overall. He had a couple games and a couple moments that were bad, but I think the majority of Drew Tranquill was really pretty good this year. I think he was an underrated piece. Leo, when he played, was really solid. Jeffrey Bossa, we don't know. He didn't play hardly at all.
He played less than Cooper McDonald, who they seem to like, by the way.
That's also Rick. I'm fine with Cooper McDonald play. One of those two guys playing down the stretch was nice to see. I think the linebackers as a whole was a positive this year. I think the defensive line was so damn bad, just atrocious. So when we see this Chiefs team be solid against the run, that's mostly the linebackers doing. Like, it wasn't like the D-line was giving them a ton of help over here. Even with some of these pressures, like, I thought Nick Bolton grew as a pass rusher this year, which was nice to see. I don't know, maybe you disagree, but I thought the linebacker core was actually a positive this season.
Yeah, I think that's a good sneaky one after kind of hitting what I think are the fun ones in the secondary and on the O-line. I don't disagree tremendously. Here's the thing. Next year, Nick Bolton's cap hit is $19 million. So you got to be this good and better next year. It obviously, his extension was signed before this season, but the cap hits don't rise. So in terms of just like, okay, well, here's the value of this player and here's what they need to be able to do. And here's where it's going to take money from elsewhere. Next year, that might need to be, and I'm not super optimistic because of how he didn't play at the end of the year. He might not get Drew Tranquill next to him because Nick Bolton's being paid like Nick Bolton and Drew Tranquill. So now it's Nick Bolton and Jeffrey Bassa, or Nick Bolton and maybe Leo Chanel's not there, and it's Nick Bolton and Cooper McDonald. So I am curious. It will be tested next year, which does not negate what you just said. I still have now long-term concerns. Obviously, again, Tranquill's kind of up in the air. He's got a $7.5 million cap hit next year that they can clear out almost all of if they cut him. And Leo's a free agent, and I don't know what you do with Leo Chanel. I don't know how you evaluate him, what he's going to demand on the open market. I could see a lot of other teams falling in love with him. I think the Chiefs are kind of in love with him. But not in the way that is a full-time Mike linebacker. And Spags loves nobody more than his respective green dots, who obviously right now it's Nick Bolton. So I remain concerned about that group going forward because it's probably going to change. It's almost certainly it has to change at least one of those three spots you highlighted. It might change at two of those three spots. The one that won't change is Nick Bolton. I think the two things there that I agree the most with that you said, one is that Bolton kind of taking another step as a blitzer is a great thing, and I agree with you on that. It's obviously a part-time off-speed pitch for him, but I do think that is something that makes you more valuable as an interior linebacker, even as an off-ball linebacker, I'll say. And the run defense angle, I think, is a smart one because you're right. It's not like they were just employing a bunch of run stuffers up front there. Chris Jones is very good against the run. He doesn't get enough credit for that. But next to him, it was Jerry Tillery and Derek Nottie and Mike Pennell, and Nottie and Pennell are run-stopping styles of players, but they're not dominant run game destroyers, right? Like you weren't just seeing them shooting gaps and hitting the running back in the backfield. And so I think that it's a good call to give that linebacking core credit for being able to sort through a pretty messy front seven most of the time. I like that angle there. Obviously, the thing on Bolton, that's always going to be the thing on Bolton, is when other teams come into a game and say, okay, well, we really, really, really respect this player for what he can do as a communicator and a run defender and a blitzer and all of that. But if we can just throw it past his ear hole a few times or just, toss it right over his dome, we're going to have a nice day over the middle of the field. That remained a problem this year. That's a part of Bolton's calling card. If he can somehow improve on that, then he'll be worth the contract. If he doesn't improve on that, he's still going to give you the positives in all the places that he gives you positives. So I think we're pretty close, and maybe now it's just because the contract is done. I think we're probably all pretty close to the same 10-15% opinion range on Nick Bolton. He's really good at a lot of things. He's not as good as an elite linebacker you'd like to have be in terms of the pass defense. But overall, I do think Drew Tranquill is not going to get cut and then be out of the league like Anthony Hitchens in terms of what his season was. I don't know that he's going to be worth $7.5 million to this team next year. If Leo's not back, I wonder. But I think most likely they're going to free up that money, and then maybe he goes back to LA. He finds a third team to spend the last few years of his career with, but he might not be back. Drew Tranquill might be cut this year. It will not be because he can't play anymore. It's just how this contract is structured.
I want to give a shout out to Corey. He says, wow, I actually got to check out my favorite podcast live. I'm so stoked. We're stoked to have you here.
That's
Corey.
weird, Corey. Only Weird Games isn't live for another hour or so.
No, this is the best one. That's number 2.
That was just a fun joke for my friend Sterling.
Yeah.
I'd
top
5.
The best
Thanks,
one we did
Corey. Thanks.
The best one we did was the Christmas episode with the birds.
Oh, God! I hope people enjoyed the Christmas episode. I didn't get nearly enough tweets about that.
I don't know if I got a single tweet about it. I think I got one.
I'm not sure. I'm tempted to go look at the comments now that we're having this discussion, and I'm more tempted not to.
I think that was in the pantheon of fun episodes I've ever done that 90% probably didn't like, but that 10%, they loved what we did.
We were working with some restrictions. We were working with some constraints, and we made art that day. I don't think that this show is always art. That episode definitely was.
Yeah. like Salvador Dali. That's what we were. And you were the babu, the ocelot.
This is my favorite painting, Sterling. This is the Hallucinogenic Toreador by Salvador Dali. You can actually see it in St. Petersburg, Florida. The second largest Salvador Dali museum in the world is in St. Pete. I, of course, have been to the 3 largest Salvador Dali museums in the world. St. Pete was the first one. My parents lived near there. The biggest one is in Figueres, Spain, which was his hometown. He designed it himself before he passed, and went to that. It was amazing. And then we saw the 3rd largest collection of Dali in Paris. Both of those latter 2 were on our honeymoon. Thanks for bringing them up.
Did not expect that.
I didn't think you did. I figured I had mentioned some of that in passing, but I was like, man, look, if anytime I have a chance to give a brief Salvador Dali lecture during a podcast, I have to take the opportunity to.
Yeah.
This painting is enormous, by the way. It's like a story tall. It takes up like the entire wall in the museum. It's amazing.
Well, I'll have to go sometime.
You should. Yeah. It's amazing. The St. Pete. Since you asked, one of Dali's, maybe I guess Dali's single probably largest benefactors, or a couple that I can't remember if they're from Florida or they just settled in Florida or whatever, but they were huge patrons of Salvador Dali, and then so they just built the museum with the pieces of his that they had patronized, and it's amazing. It, in a lot of ways, it's more cohesive as a museum than the one that he designed himself in Spain. The Figueres one is very immersive, but the one in St. Pete is my favorite, like straightforward museum I think that I've ever been to. I'm gonna hang this back up now.
I'm glad I made a joke that somehow turned into a history lesson. I liked it.
By the way, that's probably my second favorite Dali. My first one's Dolly Parton.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Super chat from Can I Pet That Dog? Appreciate the super chat. Can I pet that dog? McDuffie for Crosby, straight up. Yes.
Yes.
I was going to say, I don't know why the Raiders would do that, but I think the Raiders wouldn't hate it. I don't think the Raiders would do it. He's younger.
Yeah, I don't think the Raiders are going to trade Max Crosby to the Chiefs. I don't think that McDuffie for Crosby is a fair value anyway, but I think if it was like McDuffie and a third for Max Crosby, I would still do it. I think the Raiders still probably wouldn't, be my guess.
That was intriguing. You know what? I like that. I'm 100% yes on that, by the way. I don't know what it would take for the Raiders. Because, again, the Raiders, if they're going to trade him either way, that's a younger player. But then you would also then have to turn around and sign McDuffie to a very large contract.
I don't know the details of how Crosby's contract would go from here. He's also 28, which is like a little older than he seems, I think. But
that's what he seems.
Max Crosby would have an unfathomable run, and he would become a superstar in a way that being on a good team would help him. I love Max Crosby.
I do too, the Raiders.
Dude. I'm excited for him not to soon, whoever that's for.
Him, Chris Jones, and Karlaftis would be, oh my goodness, one guy, just Max Crosby. I don't even get, and then Omar Norman Lott.
Run a 3-4. I don't even care.
I'm all the way bleeping in. It's not going to happen, but wow, now I'm dreaming. This is why it's off season, baby. All right. Last positive. Matt Araiza. Matt Araiza deserves a lot of credit. His inside the 20% went up 4%. His touchbacks went down from 9 until 3. I thought Matt Araiza, this was what we expected. They brought in the Ray Guy award winner in training camp to push him. And Araiza won the job. And then Araiza, I thought, blossomed into a really good punter this year. So I want to give him some credit because I was pretty hard on him last year because it felt like last year was like, I kick punt ball. This is what I do. And it was like, yeah, dude, but that's 12 yards deep in the end zone. That does this no good. That now is a 30-yard net punt because of that. This year is a lot more touch. He went from a thrower to a pitcher, if you will, in baseball terms. That's what it felt like Matt Araiza was.
Yep, I think that's right. We talked about him in the offseason, or just literally that. It was like, all right, man, we get it. You're the punt god. Can you please learn about touchbacks? I think we made that joke. It was like, hey, as soon as he learns that putting the football in the end zone doesn't actually make the other team start behind the goalpost, as soon as he learns that, he'll be unstoppable. And then obviously he was able to refine that some this year in a way that, yeah, I imagine he's probably going to stick around for a very long time. His contract's obviously an interesting one because he was drafted and then cut by the team that drafted him and all of that. I don't know when that might end up coming around. I will say I'm never going to get gaslit into paying a punter. So I think enjoy him while he's here. But yeah, no, absolutely a good shout there in a year that was also surrounding him absolutely abysmal from special teams. A unit that was apocalyptically let down this year. Araiza being a bright spot's legitimate.
Let's get into the negatives, which is everything else. Good show, everyone. Hopefully you guys had fun. Everything else was...
I forgot we were going to do negatives. We should have done that before the break.
Yeah, negatives. Let's just stick with the defensive line. Was this the worst defensive line you remember seeing in the last 10 years? I mean, like, we can go back. I was like Tyson Jackson and Glenn Dorsey. So I'm not trying to say this is the worst of all time.
Right.
But this defensive line, maybe even based on expectations, and maybe we had too high of expectations, but I feel like our expectations weren't that high. Like, our expectations were average.
Yes.
Like Chris Jones, Karlaftis, and Menahu talked all that smack on the X, and he looked fine the last 2 games. Yay. Can't wait to hear more of him talking smack on X again all offseason long. Mike Pennell looked like he took a step back. Derek Nottie was Derek Nottie. Jerry Tillery continued his underwhelming NFL performances. Mike Dana took a step back. Ashton Gelati was fine. He's a rookie, so it's a little bit of an unfinished grade, but I think what we saw from Gelati was he's probably your Mike Dana replacement. I don't know if we saw the upside that was like, oh, yeah, we saw some plays here or there that Gelati flashed quick on. No, it was more Mike Dana-esque, which is fine, by the way. That's not a knock. For a third-round rookie defensive end, yeah, you're paying Dana, $8.5 million to do this. Well, now you have a rookie contract doing that. That's smart business. To me, the defensive line was probably the number one most disappointing aspect, and that's saying a lot from a unit that, quite frankly, again, didn't have these crazy expectations.
And that still had the team's second or third best player on that unit in Chris Jones. And obviously he was not as consistently wire-to-wire dominant. His highs were still extremely high. He just hit those a little bit less frequently this year. But he alone was not enough to save anything that you just said there. Also, obviously, Omar Norman-Lott was a legitimate investment at 63 overall. And you barely saw him. And that's not his fault. I don't know that that's GM or coaching or whatever. Like, the guy got hurt. He got hurt after putting on weight and being hurt throughout training camp and all of that. And just to be clear, in case people don't remember, the reports that he was putting on a few extra pounds at the request of the team. He didn't show up chunky, but he's just banged up all throughout camp and then hurt early on, and you lose him for the season. That's frustrating, and that also contributes to that, I think. But I do think it's the reason that we did not have overly high expectations, because you expect another really good year from Chris Jones. You got a really good year from Chris Jones. The investments were Omar in the second round, Ashton Gelati 3 picks later, and reasonable investments in Mike Dana and Charles Menahu that you already laid it out, didn't necessarily pan out that way. And you just paid George Karlaftis, a deal that I think is probably, it's why positional value matters, and it's kind of a similar thing to the Nick Bolton contract. If George Karlaftis is exactly this guy, he's always going to be probably worthy of the deal, but he's not going to be a deal, if that makes sense. He'll be worthy of what he gets paid, but you're not going to go, man, I'm just so glad they got George Karlaftis for $25 million a year instead of the 28 that he might have gotten on the open market. You know what I mean? So all that to say, and Karlaftis near the end of the year dealing with the thumb injury, I guess, your hands do matter as a defensive end, in case people have maybe, not followed that ongoing story. They invested in it.
Tell that to Jason Pierre-Paul.
Dude, he's back, right? Didn't he sign to was he on the Bucks practice squad he made a return this year, I think, right? Late in the season, little mercenary deal. It doesn't matter. I think the concerning things are the compounded nature of some investments that didn't pan out this year, and the fact that they were not able to cobble together answers like they're always able to do in the secondary, like they're usually able to do in a few other places across the team, going over the offensive side of the ball and all of that. So, I mean, disappointing without super high expectations, I think, is a very fair way to set it.
Yeah, I do think Chris Jones took a step back, at least the first half of the season. He was better as it progressed and ending on a very high note, but I do think Chris Jones early on was fairly disappointing. I mean, the Chargers game, the Jacksonville game, we can talk away one about double teams. I looked it up. He was not getting double teamed at the rate that a lot of the other elite guys were getting double teamed at. Yes, he gets double teamed a lot. That's not what I'm saying. Other people need to step up as well. But he went from elite to really good. There was a step back this year.
Yeah,
no,
he's a 31-year-old
defensive
defensive tackle who played a ton of snaps. Like, to me, and I'm also not necessarily disagreeing with that, it feels a lot like the conversations you end up having around Mahomes. You're like, did Mahomes play, like, was that his best football this year? No, not necessarily, but also the whole unit was sort of built out of Patrick Mahomes being able to be Patrick Mahomes all the time. Kind of similar with Travis Kelce in a way, just in terms of like usage and all of that. I think it's fair to say that Chris Jones did not have an elite season. While I would also say that there is a world in which he has a better year next year if there is competent defensive tackle play next to him, making his life a little easier.
Some more negatives I want to get into. There's a big one I want to say next that might be a little fun. But before we do that, something that is very fun, Gold Belly. This is a positive. This is getting thrown into the positive category right here. Okay, Gold Belly is outstanding. If you've not heard of Gold Belly, it's this incredible site that I order from. You can get the most iconic, famous foods from restaurants all across the U.S. It is perfect for game day, for Valentine's Day, or anything that you have going on. Gold Belly will ship you iconic Chicago deep dish pizza from Luminaldi's. That's what I had. I had the deep dish pizza from Luminaldi's. I had the pepperoni and the sausage.
How do they do that?
Yeah, they do this. They put it in this like dry freeze situation. I don't even know it's like dry freeze. I don't know how it works.
Dry ice?
Dry ice probably. And you pick the day. It's super easy online. You go and like, what do I want? There's a whole list of foods, which I'm going to get to in just 1 second. But I thought it was super easy. It was like, what day do you want this on? And I'm like, I want it on this day because my parents and I were going to watch Die Hard. And we were like, well, we want pizza for Die Hard. Let's do this. This is going to be great. So we got Luminaldi's shipped to our house on this date. It arrived. It was super easy to figure out how to make it work as far as, is it frozen? Is it refrigerated? No, all the instructions are right there. It was awesome. So we ate Luminaldi's and watched Die Hard, all because of Gold Belly. So shout out Gold Belly. So if you want great pizza, deep dish pizza, the original buffalo wings from Anchor Bar in Buffalo, Guy Fieri's unbelievable trash can nachos, real Philly cheesesteaks, or even the legendary Franklin's barbecue straight from Texas to your door, they have that. And oh, by the way, Valentine's Day, that's coming up. Peter Luger's Steakhouse, world famous macaroons, and even the exact cake served at JFK's wedding that he gave to Jackie O. That right there is on Gold Belly. So,
can I give you a free one? Can I mention? I know this is not my time. You know what I'm seeing on the website right now?
Yeah,
Joe's Kansas City Barbecue. Maybe you want to send that to somebody else and say, "Here's what you're missing. Here's what you've missed in Kansas City."
Boom.
Right, sorry for interrupting.
And you're
This
correct.
looks delicious, and I'm pretty hungry, and this is pretty exciting.
It is electric. Shout out Gold Belly. It was awesome. Super easy. You pick the date. Shipping was incredible. and you get to make memories with your family with some of the most iconic foods in the entire United States. So if you're looking to turn game day into an unforgettable experience with friends, or do you want to impress a loved one on Valentine's Day, go to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code Arrowhead. That's goldbelly.com, code Arrowhead for 20% off your first order.
These bagels are kind of calling my name. This is dangerous. This is the whole world right here at your fingertips.
Yeah, it was awesome. Awesome. By the way,
I watched Die Hard for the first time this year, by the way. I had never seen it.
It's a great movie. Incredible
It's an excellent movie. Incredible. I think we watched it on like December 28th or something, just so no one could, I didn't have to enter the Christmas movie debate.
So, I see this from Cypress 101, great name. Cliff Kingsbury is now available to be Patrick Mahomes' new OC. This one's intriguing.
I can't stop looking at pictures of food.
Because Cliff Kingsbury, the name, makes a lot of sense. Ton of sense as the OC for the Chiefs. But we looked this up today, and the only team that really ran RPOs more than Kansas City and ran the ball out of shotgun more than Kansas City was Washington.
So you're saying it all adds up. You're saying it's all right there. You're saying this is the move. This is the play.
So I'm confused because my brain says Cliff Kingsbury, my heart, I should say, says Cliff Kingsbury makes a lot of sense in KC, and I would absolutely love it. But my brain, after doing a little research, says, oh no, this is just going to be the RPO with heavy on the P special and running out of shotgun. So I don't know. It was weird that it sounds like Washington was the one to move on from Cliff because I feel like that's dumb.
They ended up parting with both coordinators, but keeping their head coach. It's an interesting moment in Washington.
Well, known, well-run organization, Washington always has their stuff together, so that makes sense. Sure. But no, I think Cliff Kingsbury, we'll talk about that a lot more, but I thought that was intriguing, that I feel like we all see the name Cliff Kingsbury, makes a lot of sense. I think the first reaction you have is, yeah, we would love to have Cliff Kingsbury here, and then at least the two main metrics I looked at of RPOs and running out of shotgun make me scream, please no, that is the issue here in KC. Now, we're talking issues here for the Chiefs and what went wrong. Obviously, I think that's one of the big parts with the RPOs, the offensive scheme. It's bland, and I don't want to talk about it again because we've talked a lot already this year about the antiquated, outdated, schematic disadvantage that Kansas City had the majority of the season. So I don't want to dive again into that conversation, but I do think a disappointing aspect, this is one that is hard for me to do because I think we were all wrong. Wide receivers.
I thought that's where we were going. Yep.
Tight ends, not named Travis Kelce.
Yep.
And obviously the entire run game, but that's another horse that's been beat to a pulp.
So Sterling, the skill position players not named Travis Kelce is where we've gotten this narrowed down to. Oh dear.
Which is what it was pretty much last year. Outside of last year, at least you had the early Rashee Rice and then the late Xavier Worthy.
He didn't die. Sterling means Xavier Worthy late in the season, not RIP the late Xavier Worthy.
Well, I don't know because how he was on the field sure looked like it.
His sideline awareness not high,
dude. Like I like Xavier Worthy. We saw glimpses year one, and I think he's being misused. Yeah. But dude, I'm tired of the excuses being made for the guy. Like, I feel like anytime I've criticized, and I like Worthy. I worked his auction. I like Xavier Worthy a lot. But just because I have a criticism doesn't mean I don't like the guy or I think he's a bust. But when I would criticize him, it's always, well, he's injured. His shoulder has nothing to do with him catching the ball 3 yards out of bounds. His shoulder, in my opinion, shouldn't stop him from coming back to the ball. High pointing the ball, sure. I'll grant you that one. But coming back to the ball, I do think he's used wrong. I think Xavier Worthy should have been used in the Hollywood Brown role. And I think Tyquan Thornton should have been used in the Xavier Worthy role, which, by the way, maybe Tyquan Thornton gets a pass in this because Tyquan Thornton was good this year. I have no qualms with him. No qualms.
My only
Zero
qualm
qualms.
is that at some point they decided to hide his light under a bushel.
Maybe because they wanted to bring his trade value down or his contract down so they can pay him this offseason. But like between Worthy having a regression, between Rice having a regression and his own reason why he was suspended, missing 6 games, with Juju Smith-Schuster not his fault, with Hollywood Brown still not living up to the hype that originally was there when he came to Kansas City, with Noah Gray, my goodness, I have no idea what happened. That was weird. He got the contract, and I don't know what happened to Noah Gray. Jared Wiley, clearly they don't believe in him going forward. I mean, this was maybe one of the most disappointing based on expectations. I mean, we talked D-line. They were disappointing, but expectations weren't high. Expectations were very high on this receiving and weapon core, and it was pitiful.
I think the defensive line might have been more costly because if they would have been 25% better, they're a playoff team. If the wide receivers and tight ends were 25% better, maybe they are. I don't know. But I'm with you on a whole bunch of that. You beat me to the Xavier Worthy thing, which is to say, hey, look, here, here's what I'd like for Xavier Worthy. I'd like for him to get fully healthy and get all cleaned up this offseason. And then next year, I would like for him to wear a number 5 jersey that says Brown on the back. And then just if he could be used like they used Hollywood Brown this year, I think that would be beneficial to everybody. I'm with you on, I think Tyquan Thornton was your best, like, actual deep threat, not just your fastest straight line guy, but a guy who actually can threaten you down the field and might come down with a football. I think I am holding more stock in Xavier Worthy than your average Chiefs fan or commentator or whatever at this point. That might prove me wrong. I don't know. But the skill set still seems so evident to me that I would like to give Xavier Worthy a healthy offseason, a different and more intermediate focused usage, and without any sarcasm or any snippiness here, a wide receivers coach who has been a wide receivers coach before. I don't want to just dump on Connor Embry, the wide receivers coach, and Todd Pinkston, the running backs coach. But Todd Pinkston was an NFL wide receiver, and Connor Embry coached wide receivers in high school in 2017, and then was a Chiefs assistant for a while after that before getting the wide receiver coach job in 2023, right? Yeah. This says 2023. I think that might be wrong because wasn't this his second year as wide receivers coach?
I think it's year 3.
Maybe it's year 3. Point being,
it's year 3.
Wikipedia says it's year 3. I went to double check, and I was thinking that we talked about him a lot more last year. Also, you got the wide receiver turnover and all of that. So I'm not ever trying to like fire anybody. I don't enjoy Black Monday or any of the coordinator shuffling of all of this. If Connor Embry and Todd Pinkston have other roles in the team going forward, that's totally fine by me. But I would like to see, considering that this has been a pretty young group of wide receivers, at least at the top. And then you bring in DeAndre Hopkins. You get some more time with Juju Smith-Schuster. The veterans are guys who are able to come in and kind of stabilize things a little bit here and there. But Rashee Rice, I think we need to talk about taking a step back, or at least not taking a step forward. I was super high on Rashee Rice coming into this year. Obviously, he's suspended the first 6 games. That's his own fault. Rashee Rice did not excel to the point of taking the baton from Travis Kelce, which to me was one of the number 1 goals of this season. Have Travis Kelce hand the baton to Rashee Rice and keep the offense running at full speed. And Rice wasn't there to take it. That's not about Kelce. That's about Rashee Rice in that equation to me. You have to go back to the drawing board unless you think you just missed on your evaluation of the guys you entered this year as your number 1 and number 2 wide receivers, and number 3, frankly, because again, Hollywood, obviously he got hurt at the beginning 2 seasons ago now in preseason. This year, I was happy to have Hollywood back again. And that vision just never came together. There was always so much talk of, well, just wait till they get Rice and Worthy and Brown all on the field at the same time. Then everybody's got to eat. And everybody went hungry. I just think that there is so much, and again, I don't really want to do all the scheme stuff today either. I'm with you on that. But unless you just had a bottom 5 talent room in the wide receiver group this year, which I don't think they did, unless you just believe that you completely messed up how you built that structure, I think you've got to make a change in the coaching department there, because you have to swap out an ingredient. And unless you trade Rashee Rice this offseason, trading low, and unless you give up hope on Xavier Worthy after, basically a season and a half of real usage, it's bleak. And the tight end thing is just as bleak. Noah Gray is still a useful player. He is not a guy that's going to be your number 1 tight end after Travis Kelce retires, whenever that is. He will continue to be a useful player. He's not a number 1 tight end for an offense that relies on their tight ends. Is he a top 32 tight end in football? Maybe, but not a difference maker in a way that we've seen any evidence of. Jared Wiley, like you said, he made the 53. He was a healthy scratch every week except for the 2 weeks, I think, that Noah Gray was hurt. He caught that one little 4th down thingy. I think there are real questions to be asked. We've killed the running back position, rightfully so. I think there are real questions to be asked in all 3 of those position groups. And again, is that a position coach not taking advantage of the talent? Is it the guys not stepping up with their opportunity? Is it Andy Reid not using those players the right way? Or is Matt Nagy somehow to blame? I really am open-ended on where you want to point the finger here, and I'm going to be fascinated to see what the Chiefs do in these next few days, next couple of weeks, even from a coaching standpoint. But by any reasonable observation, it simply wasn't good enough.
I think that's how you put a bow on the season. However you want to break it down or view it, it simply wasn't good enough. We'll talk a lot more with you guys all offseason long. We'll do a lot more draft stuff as the offseason gets really underway, because number 9, this is exciting. This is a chance to get a blue chip prospect like the Eagles did with Jalen Carter. Now, there were some reasons why he fell, but the point still remains. This is a good chance. You're not getting maybe a top 3 guy, but it's a chance to get a Pro Bowler, a great chance to get a Pro Bowler, not just a starter. This is a opportunity for KC. Can they hit on it? I appreciate everyone hanging out with us all season long, with the good times and the mostly bad this one, but we'll be with you all throughout the offseason. Good times only when it's Tuesdays with Briscoe and Sterling, because I think it's a damn good time. 3 o'clock Central right here. Appreciate everyone. 5-star reviews wherever you get it. Go check out Factor and Goldbelly. I'm not kidding. I love those 2 products so damn much. Until next time, we are out.